there anybody that's not Bulgarian except these guys?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. I want to, before I start, I want to start with the most important thing. That will be how I start. These two over there. This is Philip so for the people who have been the game jam in the last 3 years, they know Velimira pretty well. She's one of the people that started the Sofia Game Jam with Usica, who is not with the team this year, but Philip is filling the spot really, really good. And like that's the most important new part of Sofia Game Jam. So one first big round of applause for these two. Thank you. And also thank you for having me for like fourth time. I hope I'm not really, really boring and everything. Game Jam, which is amazing. When it all started, I was like, okay, let's see if this is possible here. It's obviously possible. And all of us, all of you are amazing. And yeah, so as always, we start with some thanks to our main sponsors. This year, like the most important sponsor are Hemimont Games. They're like a Bulgarian game studio. I think you know them, like this small studio. Also, other big supporters are Game Loft Sofia. There are some people here that are from Game Loft. Thank you, Game Loft. Also, yeah, actually Game Loft contacted us for like, we want to be part of the Game Jam. It wasn't the other way as usual, which is amazing. Thank you for that. So we are at co-working space Puzzle, as you probably know. So thank you, Puzzle, for having us. You can stay here all the time until the Game Jam is over. Please take care of the area, take care of the inhabitants of Puzzle. You can speak with them, you can meet them. There are some really nice people that I know here. Half Bike are in the other room, so we'll probably have some fun with them later, which is not official, like, don't care about them right now. Also, thanks to Acer, who gave us this shit. This is like the shit, really powerful PC, really amazing thing. We'll have a VR headset connected to that, so you can try the Oculus. You can create some things for the Oculus and use them with these machines. Also EGX Reset, who we award the winner of this year's Game Jam, thanks to them. And these guys here, all of them are from 11-bit Studios. So they will share some knowledge from the Polish gaming industry with us, which is like really, really nice. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
And last but not the least important, Monster and Zagodka, who are sharing their amazing drinks with us. You can have some beer, you can have some energy drinks. I'm pretty sure you don't need that yet, and you're like, beer and more energy drinks. But trust me, it's not tonight, tomorrow in the afternoon. You'll be like, okay, where is the Monster? Please give it to me. At least that's my experience. First in our list is, I'm really sorry guys, but Polish names are not my thing. It's really not. So the first one is Adam Śmietański.
Very nice, very nice. Hey!
So I'll read that because I'm too stupid to remember. So he has a workshop that's called Concept Art for Visual Communication. So I guess the artists here will be really happy. He is the concept artist at 11-bit Studios, and if you don't know, the 11-bit Studios created this world of mine. This is one amazing game. Just go buy it, play it. If you didn't, it's really amazing. Here it says that it's a survival RPG game taking place in a fictional Eastern Europe city shaken by a war conflict, where you play as the civilians. So you're welcome. We'll have a coffee break a bit later. It will be shorter than announced, but yeah, take the stage, Adam.
Okay, let me just close this and presentation. So, first of all, like again, thank you for all the people who are organizing this wonderful event, for having me. It's a very great feeling to share some of my knowledge with you about concept art and how you visually communicate with people through art, composition, color, and everything that. So maybe let's start from what actually is concept art and why is it so important in the game industry. Actually, not only game industry, car developers, movie creators, all people that are in need of creative knowledge use this type of technique to create, let's say, visual prototypes of things that they want to develop. So yeah, how does it start? It actually starts with a vision. Every time people develop something, they came up with an idea of what they're doing, and the main responsibility of a concept artist is to gather all the knowledge from the designers, from the story writers, and create one specific vision of the things that the developers are creating. So the whole team may focus on one image, on one collective project, instead of trying to figure out everything on their own. So first thing will be about color and composition, and how do you use it to communicate the specific mood of the scene. Right here I have some set of speed paintings that, as you already noticed, differ in color and in composition. And at the left side we have these reddish and orange images that are supposed to create some kind of, let's say, danger feeling, like, let's say, a city that's burning, or some kind of screens that resemble a very toxic environment from Doom. And it's actually all thanks to the color that is actually communicating, because the shapes, as you can see, are very simple, but this, I think, you're able to figure out on your own at those images. Here on the center, we have a little cool colors, a little bit of green. The green represents much more calmer themes. You probably almost can't feel any danger here. Those images are very calm, and actually, these images mostly depends on just using shapes and composition. I mean, it's kind of a sphere. You don't actually know what it is, but thanks to the specific shape of this object, it tends to pop out from the image. And that's how you actually catch the attention of people through shape. You try to distort one object, you try to pull it out by designing a very unique shape that differs from the whole environment. And it's actually the same way here. Through using red color on this building, I actually made it look more appealing, more important, exactly at least I hope so. The first thing that you will be focusing on is this building, and it's thanks to the color that it has. Also, there is some little line design, this river that points out this building to strengthen the importance of the subject on the scene. And that's actually pretty much it. You're seeing the building, you're thinking it's important, and that's how you communicate the importance of objects on the scene. Through different colors, through strong colors like red. Actually, games such as Mirror's Edge always have the most important object colored red, so you know that you can use this, that they are important. Further ahead, on the middle right image, you see that there are some buildings. There's some kind of sci-fi scene, and through the line composition, through the alignment of the buildings, you see that they're pointing you at this particular building. Its size, its composition is trying to tell you that this is the most important thing on the scene. It's also its size, its elevation, through the alignment, size. I try to express this building is important. Yeah, so that would be about composing through color. Yeah, so let's switch to using light. Yes. Here we have 6 images that differ in light composition, and by using only light, we can also change the meaning of the scene that we created. On the far upper left, we have 2 characters from Anomaly Defenders, and it's a simple plain scene that you actually only receive the information that you see 2 characters, and that's about all. But we can change the light in many different ways to make the scene tell you something more, like the importance of the character, which character actually is on the first plane. By overshadowing the character in the first plane, I made the other character pop out, so the first character is blending with a darker background, and just by lighting this character up, I made it pop out. So it takes the first plane, although that is on the second plane. This one is the first. And you can do actually the same in the other way, that you just put strong light on the character in the middle, and you almost darken up the second character to make him become just some sort of background, that just fill the scene, and focus all the importance on this character. On the far right of the scene, I actually wanted the light to become the first thing you notice. By setting the light like this, I tried to give the meaning to the source of light. I mean, it's not there, but because of how the characters are lit, you begin to wonder what is the source of this light. So actually, by setting this light in this way, I made the light to be the first plain thing that you will think about. Here is some use of rim lighting that pretty much helps only in make this scene more dynamic in lights, so it doesn't look such plain as here. And it's actually for the looks of the image, so far as I know. And yeah, also those characters are overshadowed a little because I wanted to create more like a sinister look at this scene, that maybe they're not so good, there may be some more evil. Like the light can drastically change the meaning of the scene, the look of the character. If you just put some shadow in it, it can turn from a nice person to a very evil person. And it's just only because I've changed the light a little bit. And here we have some light too. I mean, exactly, this light is just for making the characters pop out a little bit. It doesn't actually change the mood of the scene too much, but also adds a little more dynamic. It doesn't look so sinister as it looks on the right middle image. So we just put some some lights here to make the image more dynamic, to catch more attention of the viewer, because if the images look just plain and don't have any play of colors, of light, they look plain simple and they have a hard time evoking any feelings in the people, in the watchers that are actually looking at it. So I hope that you guys feel at least a little bit those things by looking at all those images. Yeah, so this is how you communicate through light. And next thing will be, next thing is pure design by shape. It is mostly used when concept artists cooperate with 3D artists. This is actually to manifest the pure look of the object. By using form, we're trying to create the visual, what was the word? Visual manifestation of the object that was written by designers. Oh, I forgot to mention that how it actually works. Well, from the beginning, we actually start with some explanation from the designers, from the art director, how this thing may look. But actually, our responsibility is to take the vision of the designers and figure out how can we make it look like the designer told us about. Like in the far right image, the designers say, okay guys, so we're making a science fiction game, so the first thing that we will need is to create like a science fiction tank that looks heavy, that you know that it's heavy from the first look of it. It's not too much science fiction, so it resembles like a vision of, let's say, near future warfare. And from that point, this information is given to a concept artist, and we need to figure out the shape that corresponds to that description. So we use many shapes from the real world, like the lights, the barrels, the tracks, and also the form, to communicate with the viewer that this thing is heavy, that it uses very big amount of firepower, and it mostly is done by just doing shape. There are no colors because we're not building a scene here. We're just building plain objects that need to correspond to the description that were given to us. And it also takes very, very much tries, that we call iterations, before we actually hit the spot of the description that was given to us. It's a rare case, very rare case, that a concept artist paints just the thing that the art director wanted to see. So in a normal pipeline, there would be like 10 or maybe 15 versions. It actually depends on how well you visualize the description from the directors. And it's called iteration, and it works like this, that you try to picture your vision, the image, try to picture your image from the vision that you get, and then you give it to the art director, and the art director tells you, is it good? Is it showing what needs to be shown? Is it looking heavy? I mean, like I could do, I don't know, let's say that I gave him this little robot and it totally doesn't fit, because once it's not a tank, twice it doesn't look so heavy, and it's a totally misfitting object. So by making, the more versions I make, the more further I try to make more things that were communicated to me by the art director until the final product. And those can be forms of heavy objects, mechs, weapons, And when you look at it, when you look at it at its form, the most important thing is that you already know what it is. Some sort of mechanized infantry, some sort of heavy equipment, rocket launchers, railguns, anti-air emplacements, different variations of the turrets for the vehicles. Mechanized infantry, other vehicles, light vehicles. I mean, there is no color, there is no composition, it's just plain explanation of the construction of the objects. And this is how you communicate only through form. You use specific shapes to communicate what this thing is. And by looking at the first images, you know that maybe you don't know how big it is, but you know that it's mechanized infantry, that is futuristic, and it fits in the environment that it was created for. The same thing with the big ship up there. It doesn't have any guns, it doesn't have any rockets, but it has some kind of crates over there. It looks very bulky thanks to the cockpit that is in the front. It's a little more detailed because I try to use the amount of detail to point the most important things that I want the viewer to focus on. Because if he focuses on the cockpit and sees that there are small windows, you can realize that this is some big ship, some big in size, that is probably used for transportation, thanks to the hint about the size and about what it is used for. Okay, let's move to the iterations. That's how iterations look like. When we were designing the characters for Anomaly Defenders, we were trying to develop a different kind of aliens that actually took the form of a human being to appeal less frightful to the character. So in the first try, I tried to create some sort of mix between the towers, because the towers, if you play Anomaly, you know the towers look a little bit snake-like. So I thought that maybe those towers could transform into a hybrid that uses the snake from the towers and some kind of female appearance, but it wasn't approved by the art director. He wanted a more feminine look, so we exchanged the legs. We've done some pretty rough details in there to make sure that this design fits the design of the towers, the design of the aliens. And at the further right is the final version of how those characters can look. So yeah, that's pretty much about making iterations. I'm done? Really? Okay, I'm done about the presentation. So you guys have. Actually, I hope that you liked it because it was my first presentation, so I'm nervous as well. And if you want to, and right now I'm open for any questions that you guys would like to give me, or please.
Yeah, like let's go back to the palette that you use for your moves. How do you refer to a certain move? For example, like you get your AD, like your art director gives you probably a certain move that he wants for a scene. Like how do you go about like from then on? What do you do?
Okay, so it's about the importance, the composition of colors, like color coding. Oh, you want to go back there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back there.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just say that we want to create some scene that is dangerous. There are certain colors you can use at your color palette to express this mood. For example, green can be a very warm color, a very calming color, and it's actually can be turned into a very sinister color. If some of you watched Matrix, the most part of the scenes, of the sinister scenes that Mr. Anderson was running from the agents is in green palette. And this green palette doesn't create any warm feeling. It creates a very sinister, toxic feeling that makes you aware of the danger that is always following around you. So it's actually, it actually depends on how well do you know colors. There are certain books, certain tutorials that explain to you how certain colors feel. But actually, I think that by pure observation, people can distinguish what some colors mean. I mean, the red is the color of passion, of appetite, and is mostly used to grab your attention. It's like even on this poster that things that are red grab your attention, and then you see the sun. It's how colors are mainly used. They either catch attention or create moods. In here, I've used yellowish and orange palette to create some sort of toxic feeling, and let's say it. And do you want to know how to pick those colors, how to find them?
Well, I presume, like from what you said already, that you base it mostly on your observations from nature, because
Yes.
understanding the color is also based on culture.
Yes, the best way to understand the color is by making a very big amount of studies. Your brain actually has to learn, there's no other way. There's no other method. You can read about colors, you can read about their parameters, about value, contrast. I mean, those things are very necessary, but the knowledge only by itself won't do. You have to teach your brain to respond to some color compositions. And it's only achievable by making very, very big amount of studies, like speed painting, something like this. Those images took about, I don't know, half an hour or 20 minutes today.
So basically, these are like speed paintings?
Yes, those are speed paintings that just show how the color and composition plays to catch your attention and evoke special emotions.
So tell us a bit about the pipeline you work with, the tools you work with.
Tools I work with. I mainly work with Photoshop and so okay, let me just tell you about.
So what were the particular tools you used to make the mechanical parts of the mechs? Because some of them looked like you drew them by hand, but some of them looked like they were 3D renders actually.
Yeah. Those objects are indeed reinforced by 3D models that were created in SketchUp. Those were like very, very rough blockouts, so I could catch the perspectives. Those are pretty much old concept, like 4 or 5 years old. And back then, I may say that I pretty much sucked at dynamic drawing, and I needed very quickly to produce some good readable objects. So I enforced those concepts with making rough 3D blockouts and finishing them by hand, like making all the details on the barrels, adding those lines, some details on the tracks, and actually it helped me a lot. It helps a lot because as a concept artist, you mostly improvise, and sometimes you may be good just at one thing, you get a job, and you're like environmental drawer, and then your art director says, okay, so I need a very detailed concept of a tank, and then you're like, okay, and yeah, that could be pretty much the end of the career, because mostly in the industry, the developers expect you to know almost pretty much everything and how to how to create it. So when you're improvising, it is a very valuable tool to make some 3D blockouts and then reinforce your artwork with it. So yeah, that was pretty much my kind of improvisation that I did. So I had some kind of an idea how to create it. Then created simple blockouts and then focused on the details that should be mentioned in this concept. What else could it be? Also, it's good to take some references about the object that you're working on, like getting information about the tanks, how do they work, because there are certain feats of the object that communicate to you and explain what it is. In this case, it's the turret, the tracks, and the cannons. Those are the only things that were taken from a reference and are the most important feats of the object to communicate that it is what it is. What else?
And the number.
So I guess it's pretty much it about.
No, that fully answered my question.
All right.
Excuse me, can I ask something?
Please.
In this world of mine, the atmosphere is just great. The mood is very nicely done. Can you show us some common stuff? That or
Actually, I
So I can answer this a bit. So we did some visualizations. Sorry. And I have them in my presentation.
Okay.
So
Great.
Okay, so actually the only thing that I was working on was the wall with the graffiti theme. It was a marketing asset, and by creating that, we were trying to make some sort of visual philosophy of the whole game. Like we wanted the viewer to make some of the concept of the climate of the game by himself. So we thought that we don't want to show them playing sides of the war, people suffering and this stuff like in Private Ryan, that you actually see the war and what's happening, but you are not fully emotionally engaged in it. So what we thought about is that we could make a wall, we could make some hints about what happened on this wall, that it is destroyed. It has some signs like here lies my pride, Ma, where are you? Those are all memories of people of the war, and when you try to read them, you begin to imagine the things that could happen near this wall that is destroyed. The hints are that you know that this wall is destroyed, you know what those signs mean, and then you are trying to actually imagine what happened. And because of that, you begin to create your own feeling of this whole warfare. I think that it's a lot better to leave people only hints and make them engage themselves in some thinking than putting some scene right in your face that I think may evoke less contact with you than through the symbolic images. So it was only pure about symbolism, and that was my work, to create some kind of theory, some kind of graphic theory of how to make people feel the horrors of warfare just through pure symbols.
Question, based on what you just said, how much more difficult it is to create, like based on your philosophy, just putting hints, letting the observer, the player, just stitch out the story for themselves. How much more difficult it is than making it, like just putting it right there. Creating all this language to use throughout the game.
It actually requires more logical thinking because how to say it, sometimes you just show people simple images, and those images are pure information. If you show everything on the image, you are leaving the viewer with no place to engage himself. So when you are leaving hints, you're trying just to, you need to build some kind of logic model. You need to think everything through. You have to have at least some knowledge of symbols. Like there are many symbols in the world that you just look upon and you know what they are, right? So it takes a great knowledge of symbols to create some kind of paths that guide you into some kind of into the thing that you're trying to describe. So yes, it is much harder than building the scene. It's almost the same in composition in images. If you show everything plain, if you give all the information you want, you leave the viewer without any need to engage himself in the story that is told by the image. So let me get back to stuff. It's like in this scene, I limited myself to create the importance of this object only by making a composition that goes here, and by making this building a little more big. And it's not straight in your face that this building is important. You just imagine that it's important. You begin to think that what this building could be. Is it some kind of a corporation building or military building? It's all going in your head, and it's actually the same thing when you're living hints. You're trying. It's a little hard to explain by words because I'm a graphic designer. I mostly feel this thing. It's also very important to feel. Some people just don't feel it, and it can be very difficult for them to create those kind of things. But it depends on leaving some hints for the viewer, for composition, colors. Those are all hints. The composition, the alignment of the buildings, the color of the buildings. I'm not telling you that this building is important, but just looking at this image and receiving this strong red color, it all starts to explain to your head that, okay, this building can be important. It's the only thing that is red at the scene, so I think that this building should be important, and it goes in your head. That's how visual communication works. It communicates the theory of importance, danger, tranquility, some other stuff, just by making some color composition symbols that you don't exactly that they aren't explained right to your face. They're just sitting there. They're not popping up too much. They let you engage yourself with this image.
Have you ever changed your art director's mind?
Not too much. Actually, there were two companies that I worked in. The first one was some kind of an outsource company. It actually was to gain some experience. And the 11-bit is like a second company that I work for working for over 5 years. And actually, I have 2 art directors. So that's pretty much it.
I think maybe the question was about have we changed the direction of the art in this work? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's like you delivered the concept which was conflicting with this idea project, and were you ever able to kind of change his mind about something?
No.
Our directors are, let's say, our directors, boss, our directors, and we put a lot of it.
But they they really appreciate if you try to engage them and actually even fight with them over something, because it shows that you're passionate. And if you do it in a manner that's civilized, that works for you, not against you.
Yes, yes. It's all about teamworking rather than fighting with each other. So they really appreciate if you're trying to do this as best as you can. But it's also very important. If you just create art for yourself, you just create what you like, and it doesn't resemble the description or the idea of the project that the art director is creating. Actually, art directors, well, in our case, is the art director knows what he's doing. He's the man that knows best what needs to be picked up to create this mood. He many times he guides us on what do we need to present in the images, but it's like 50% of what the art director said and 50% of what I'm doing as an artist and as a craftsman. So sometimes if the thing looks even better than the art director is expected, yes, it is possible to change his mind to switch from one thing to another, but it mostly looks like that the more innovational the project is, the more times you will be creating some things and just throwing them out or tweaking them until they correspond to the vision of the art director. So, for an example, we did the aliens a few times, and the first attempt was looking very biologically, and the art director didn't like it because the biological look of this alien wasn't corresponding to the style that was already created. They wanted to add more metal, more technical stuff that respond and resemble the earlier design of the towers. So in that case, the art director said, no, you need to fix it. You need to adjust it to the style that we have. And they're pretty much responsible for this kind of work. If our work just stands out too much the way that the art director picks, then we will be making it we will be making as much amount of concept art so far until the art director is satisfied. Anyone else? Okay, so I think that we closed the presentation. And now, so guys, I really wanted to thank you that you set this whole presentation through. And I hope that some of the knowledge that I shared with you will come of use in your careers or, I don't know, something else. So, thank you.